Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear that all right, Mark?
Yes, thank you.
You've done a very good job in introducing the four contributors. Let me say welcome to Sébastien, Dieter, Charles and Olivier, and thank you very much for agreeing to participate this afternoon. I'd like to start with a general question to each of you. And I'd like your impressions of the market over the last 2 years, basically since we've started the COVID crisis. So I'd like your impressions of the last 2 years and what do you think of future trends? Could I go to Olivier first, please?
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everybody. Well, basically, I think what happened with COVID in collectibles is a little bit of what happened in every industry. I think the COVID did not create many new developments, but it was just a fantastic accelerator. So, one big element of COVID is the move to digital. I think the meetings of the RPSL and their success is a testimony to that, but also the online sales. So the world has moved, the world of collectible has moved digital like never before. And I think the development which happened in the last 2 years, I think at Spink, we were expecting them to take 5 or 6 years. So just an accelerator in terms of industry change. And then I think in terms of prices, as it was mentioned by several of you before, yes, the prices have gone up and we have sold more stuff. It's always easy, I'm sure my colleagues will agree, it's always easy to sell the top end and the bottom end of the market. The cheap stuff always sell, the top end is never a problem. But what is very difficult sometimes is the middle market, things between £1,000 and £20,000. They are costing real money, but not so rare. And I think that's where the COVID has been extremely positive. These things have been selling like never before. In my 20 years at Spink, I've never seen the mid-market so strong. And we've seen prices go up, and we've seen the selling rates of all our auctions going up too by like 10 percentage points. And this is true of stamps and in every category we deal in, coins, banknotes, and so on. So that would be my quick takeaways from the COVID to start the discussion.
Thank you. Sébastien.
Hello, Mike. Hello, everyone. What I can tell is that we noticed different phases in that crisis. At first, in March, April of 2020, all people did not know about what was happening. And so we noticed that many collectors were just not doing anything during 2 months. And so we have seen our graphs going down. And after that, we noticed a different behavior. Many of the people, Olivier told about the middle market, many people returned back to collecting just because they had time. They were closed in their home, they had nothing else to do, and they wanted to spend time. So they took back their collection and they went online because they could not go out. There were no shows anymore, no clubs. So that's what we noticed when this crisis started. For us, of course, online, it was good. We have a good raise in the numbers. The present situation is more steady. Okay, COVID was, as Olivier said, something that accelerated the business. It did not really change our business just because we did the same thing as what we are doing for 20 years at Delcampe. But we had more and more people going online and benefiting of all the comfort online can bring to the collectors. So we benefited of the fact that physical events were absent or lack of physical events.
Are you able to put a quantity on that increase in terms of market activity or prices?
Yes, we can say that at Delcampe we got between 15 and 25% increase thanks during the crisis. But But on prices, yes, we noticed a slight activity, but in opposite to the auction houses business, Delcampe is not really addressing the middle market. We address the small market and a bit of the middle market. We sell big things as well, big stuff, but it's not our core business. That means that for us, okay, we got more transactions, but not really, we did not really see an impact on the prices of the small prices market.
Could I go to the States and ask Charles how things are in America?
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be with you all. I'll echo what Olivier and Sébastien have said. When COVID first started, Scott Truppel and I, we kind of panicked like everybody else, didn't know what the world was coming to for the first couple months, but we decided to forge ahead. We have fortunately had consigners that were believing still in the market, and they benefited. The first several auctions when COVID hit were extraordinary successes, and I think it bolstered the people's participation as sellers, believing that the market was getting strong, and it just kept building. And what we noticed was a tremendous influx of people who weren't participating in our auctions before, but were once part of the marketplace and now rejoined because, like everyone else, they were at home, bored, and they needed to do something. And many returned to stamp collecting. So end result of the last 2 years with this past year, it was the highest dollar volume we've ever done by far. And prices are extraordinarily strong. And the best part of it is now the marketplace has become so worldwide, available to all of our auctioneers colleagues. It's become a totally international market. It isn't just limited to people selling in the States or in the UK and so on. We have access to people around the world, and it really changed the whole dynamic of the marketplace. So Scott Truppel and I are more optimistic than ever in our careers.
Do you think that that trend is likely to continue, or do you think that there might be a lessening off, shall we say, once COVID has diminished in importance?
I think there'll be a slowdown. There has to be. I mean, just look at the prices of your homes and stamps and everything else. That the rate that they're going up can't sustain itself. Been around in the business long enough to see ups and downs. There will be, I don't think there will be a big down because it doesn't have the factors that like we had before with the investment craze and so on. But I think some people will leave the marketplace when they fully get back to work and working in their offices and so on. But I don't see a big leveling off of prices. I think the good stuff is still going to be good. And I think as time goes on, it will continue to go up. I do worry a little bit about the middle market, always have, but it's doing fine right now. My fingers are crossed.
Thank you. And Dieter, importantly, for you, how's the market been in Europe?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and also from my side. Thank you for inviting me for this exciting afternoon. From the European point of view, I can say that many trends are exactly the same as we've seen them with what Olivier said and Charles and Sébastien. There's a few things that I can see from the European point of view. There's what is very important is, for instance, in the Central European markets, the business of the agents. I do see a little bit of the business going away from them towards online. Our collectors and our customers have realized that it's so easy to work with online bidding systems, of which we partially use 2 in our auctions, which gives the collectors far more possibilities to act according to the situation that's going on in the auction room. And so we think that a lot of the increase in prices come from that collectors are actually digitally in the room and can act according to their budgets. One little drawback I see is in the personal contact that we can maintain and keep up with the collectors on the one hand, on the other hand, which is very important with consigners. Very many of our partners who would like to sell their collections and want to do this in a personal discussion with the auctioneer. Don't want visits at the moment, but I think this will calm down very soon. When it comes to future trends, I think that we will experience more and more lesser and lesser full auction rooms, which mean less participation in person, but more online. And that I think prices in Europe have not increased as dramatically as I heard from Charles' description just now. But I think, and I'm optimistic that high price levels for the higher end material will keep on. What we like, where we did profit from this situation is the fact that all the, let's say, lower level collections have been selling like hell. We have a lot of online dealers who at the end, they come to us, they buy the material and then they go back to Sébastien and break it up there and sell many single lots. And I think that all this has helped the market in total.
Thank you. There are two supplementary actual questions I've got here that relate to what you've said. So I'll come straight back to you, Dieter, if I may. Are you surprised at the market activity, given the lack of what I could describe as proper facilities for thorough inspection of multiple lots?
In the beginning, I would say that our feelings were similar to those of Charles and Scott, that we were afraid and we said, how can we sell our collections? Because especially in Central Europe, this is very, very important. We have about 1,500 moving boxes or removal boxes in each of our auctions. So what we did, we started to become more active in scanning and photographing all these collections. And this has really brought us to a situation where, and mostly we talk about dealers here who buy the more global stuff or collectors who buy the specialized material, they have learned to view online. I would have never believed this, but it's incredible. The amount of viewers that we have less now who come personally to the office, but the amount of viewers online, it's really incredible, and that also is pushing the prices.
Is that your to Olivier? Is that your experience?
Yes, same thing. We have eyes on the computers and no more bums on seat in the auction room. That's clear. I think the viewing, we've introduced videos for lots and people like it. Actually, they have time to look, to research a cover in a lot and so on. So I think there is the viewing in situ has really shrunk tremendously. Now we've got we had a GB sale and a collector series sale a couple of days ago. I think if we had 10 people viewing for these two sales of more than 2,000 lots, it's a maximum. It's between 5 and 10, very, very limited viewing, while before we would have 100 people coming to view. So, and I think also there is a flight for quality in a certain extent. People know that if they buy from any of our 4 auction houses, if there is an issue, they can talk to us, they can return the item, and we will try to describe the items as accurately as possible, because the return is a pain for everybody, for the buyer and for the auction house. So I think people are dealing with a lot of confidence in all the auctions, the major auctions in the world.
Thank you. Charles, is your experience the same?
Very much so. I wouldn't believe it like Dieter either, that we would start selling large lots by videos, but now we spend a tremendous amount of man hours videoing our large lots, scanning them. And what has happened is, instead of the same 10 dealer buyers buying all the large lots, it's now hundreds of different buyers, including collectors. Many collectors were reticent to bid on large lots sight unseen, understandably, but now we have far more participation from collectors, in addition to smaller dealers now too, pushing up prices. Large lot prices are kind of crazy right at the moment. I know every consignor doesn't like to hear about part of his collection being in a large lot, but I can tell you from genuine experience, there are certain types of large lots where the material will sell for much higher prices in large lots than they will broken down. And we're seeing it every day now with all the different people participating around the world.
Thank you. I noticed online, I've just got a question relating to this. Does the online viewing result in the same number of issues with lot description as in-person viewing? I guess he means
Claims.
the possibility of returning things. I don't know.
Basically, in the global philatelic network and all the 5 companies, we don't see any change whatsoever in the number of reclamations or claims we have had from customers.
Yeah, it's the same here, Dieter. I think the number of returns is it's stable at a low level. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And then straight to Sébastien, actually. Do you envisage a day when all auctions will be online only with no room bidders?
That would be a bit sad, I believe. But because I believe collectors are human beings. They like to have contact. And my colleagues here told about the fact that they are missing the fact to meet collectors. For us at Delcampe, it's a bit different because we don't really meet our community. We just meet them on shows and clubs, things like that. That's why we go on shows. But that's a bit different. So I believe, yes, that the online business is going to increase more and more. And our customers are more used to using the tools to join the online business. And here, during this pandemic, many people who did not really want to use a computer or a tablet to browse online, to buy and sell online, no, they decided to do it just because otherwise they could not buy anything for their collection. So this way, it was good for the online business because these people just started doing that. And at Delcampe, yes, we know that when they start doing that, they can stop just because they tried it. It's okay. You can buy things all around the world. There may be a stamp you are trying to find in your country for a long time, and you can find it, yes, in China, in Hong Kong, and that's what's magic in online business. And my belief is that, okay, maybe someday the physical business may really go to nearly nothing, just because people will miss to attend. And my colleagues here, they can talk about that. They have charges for the physical places, for the paper catalogs and things like that. So my belief is that at a certain point of time, the cost related to keep physical events will be too high to maintain them. And I believe that the online business will be by far higher than what it is today.
I guess you may have already answered this, but specifically I had a question that says, have eBay and Delcampe resulted in the demise of the club packet?
I hear that for... you mean that clubs are done because of eBay and Delcampe?
No, the club packet typically in the UK is an exchange of duplicate material between members, normally at fairly nominal prices.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not understand your question. Can you repeat it?
Well, it was, do you understand what a club packet is? In the UK, yes. It's basically, what this person is asking is, have the increase in the business of eBay and yourself, will it result eventually in the demise of that as a method of disposal, I suppose? Yes,
of course, we benefited of the lack of physical events and these packet clubs. I used to do that as well when I was a young collector at club. So yes, definitely yes. But you know, by the time everything has changed in business, and the auction houses started having their events online many years ago. They did not wait COVID to do that, and we started 20 years ago. So yes, that's just the way it is. And sometimes there are things that technology that can replace by the time. And I believe that, yes, EB and Delcampe benefited of that.
Thank you. Now I'm going to change the subject slightly. Onto dear old subject of Brexit in the UK. So I'm going to ask Dieter directly. What difference has Brexit made to the European auction transactions with UK clients? And does Brexit result in putting the UK buyer at a disadvantage?
Well, if we talk about Brexit, we talk about customs and we talk about VAT. So, of course, if a consignor consigns to a Central European auction house from the British Isles, then of course he will have a disadvantage compared to what he had before, because simply the import tax plays a role, and vice versa. The buyer from Great Britain will have a disadvantage against before. Now, before he was able to buy an item in a French or a Belgian or a Dutch or a German auction house, and when it arrived and it was a collector's consignment, there was no VAT involved. Now, of course, whenever any item crosses the border, VAT has to be paid in England. There's no two ways about that.
Even for material which is over 100 years old?
Even for that material, and honestly, I wouldn't see why there should be a difference between younger and older material.
Olivier, do you have a comment on that?
Well, for us, we see the exact opposite side of the equation from Dieter, because Dieter is selling European items into the UK market, and for me, the Brexit is sold in the UK both by EU buyers. And I must say things have stabilized. I mean, it was a bit complicated because, in January to March last year, so a year ago, there was not enough staff at the customs. People didn't know the rules. It was, we had 3 months of, a little bit chaotic, decision by custom in the UK and the EU. Now it's behind us. Actually, it doesn't change that much because an EU buyer, the good news is now it doesn't pay the buyer's premium on the BP. So it doesn't pay the VAT on the BP. So basically he saves 4%. So that's a saving of 4%, but he has now to face the import duty in his EU country, which is typically 5%. Okay, so net, that's a slight disadvantage, but it's not a huge change for the market. And of course you have to, if you want to get the VAT exempted from VAT on the buyer's premium, which is 4%, you need to show proof of export. So you have to do a bit more paperwork to make sure it's properly exported out of the EU into Europe. So it's very easy for dealers, but for individuals, it's much more complicated, and sometimes it's just impossible.
Thank you. Is there any perception in America about the Brexit issues, or you largely find yourself in the same position you were before?
Pretty much the same position as before. We do find there's a flight of buyers trying to buy somewhere where there aren't so many regulations, just human nature. Nobody wants to pay extra, but the way things are going worldwide, including the US, every government is trying to get a piece of the action, whether it's a public auction or on online auctions. It's changing dramatically every day. Here in the States, we have sales tax on, and for years and years and years, we didn't have to charge sales tax except when somebody picked up lots in New York or they lived in New York. Now there's something like 25 states that we have to charge sales tax for our buyers for. Our European buyers like buying here because there is no such thing as VAT and so on. But of course, when it gets imported to their country, they have to pay customs. Every once in a while, there's somebody always asking us to avoid that. We obviously can't. And we encourage everyone to pay whatever their government's demanding of them. It is difficult when you sell stamps to somewhere else, and they have to pay another, besides a buyer's premium, pay another 10 or 15%, it hurts. But there's just no way of getting around it.
Sébastien, your take on it?
Yes, I can tell that from my business point of view, I can only dislike Brexit, just because what we have earned because of COVID last year, we lost it in the UK because of the Brexit. So we earned 20% thanks to the COVID, and we lost 20% because of the Brexit. Mostly, as my colleagues here told, because it's less convenient for people to buy cross-border. And at Delcampe, most of our transactions are cross-border. It's a bit difficult. First, there was the custom duties to fill. And then during the last year, there were as well VAT regulations changed in the UK on January 1st, and then in Europe as well during July. So all that year was a bit complicated for business between the two countries. But as Olivier, I believe, said, now it is now stabilizing. So we get it's a bit easier to manage now. And what we did at Delcampe last year is that we manage custom duties for our customers. So when they buy to Delcampe, they use Delcampe Pay to pay, and we can collect ourselves the VAT and the custom duties. This is something we do, and it is our role as a marketplace. So we ourselves, we have duties about that. And since last year, we do that for our customers. It makes things a bit easier for the professional dealers as well for the private collectors.
Thank you. An interesting question has come up online. I know it's going to be close to a lot of people's hearts, this, because people like to have catalogues in their collections at home for use of reference. And Chris King asks, how long before the printed catalogue disappears? Presumably this is a question of cost to you against what you produce online. So could I go straight to Olivier on that one?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think the way we answer it at Spink last year, we've done 107 or 109 auctions, and 50 were online only with no catalogs. Okay, that's not only stamps, there is also, so we've made the move halfway through. My view, for me, it was always breaking my heart when I saw, people, when there is big catalog, they were tearing the 5 pages of a country they liked, travel on the train with only 5 pages, not the 1.5 kilo catalogs. And I was thinking, I'm a father of 4, all these trees which are chopped for nothing. So the rule, that we will try, and if the market agrees with us, and I think that's a sentiment, if a catalog is worth keeping, so it's a special collection of Zanzibar or Gibraltar, it's a catalog that people will keep, we will always print. If it's an A to Z general sale that nobody will keep the catalog, we are trying to stop these catalogs, which tend also to be the biggest one and the broadest distribution. Not only it's costly, but it's costing a lot of damage to our planet. So that's where I think at Spink we are heading, and I sense it's many competitors tend to go in that direction.
Thank you. And to Dieter, as somebody whose company produces fantastic printed catalogues and distributes them very widely, what is your view?
I think, well, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have told you that in 2022 there will be no more printed catalogs. It's not going as fast as we had envisaged at the time, but I do realize that with every catalog we print, with every auction we run, there are more and more people who come on their own initiative saying that they don't want the printed catalogs anymore and they prefer to look online. I myself, I'm a guy who really likes to look the catalogs rather than online. But I think what we will all have to do, all of us will have to do, is first of all, improve our presentation online to make it more, admirable, more likable by the collectors, and also give them the possibility to print out their own little section out of the catalogs, which they can do at the moment already. but not as nice as they would probably like to do. And as Olivier already stated, I think the special catalogs will always have lovers and people who will keep them, maybe not only for their own collectible area, but just because they like them. And I think that's where the trend is going. The general catalogs will be less, the special catalogs more, or will stay stable and decrease slower than the general catalogs. We nowadays print about half of the catalogs that we printed 6 years ago.
Thank you. And Charles, is your experience similar?
Yes, the only thing is Scott Treppel and I were born and raised in this business, and we're a bit old school. To us, there's nothing like picking up a catalog of a very specialized collection and flipping the pages leisurely. As long as Scott and I are alive, there are going to be certain collections that will always have a printed catalog. However, there are sales that will, as costs go up, will demand that they will be online only. We've done a few. We anticipate doing more. They would be for very small sales or big sales where it's broad interest, like Olivier and Dieter said. You'll see more of that coming from us in the year or years to come. But there's nothing like getting a great catalog and turning those pages.
I know there are a lot of people who will agree with you there. And I guess it's really down to the worry, as far as you're concerned, is the cost of doing it and maintaining it. Anyway,
not only catalogs that are important. I think we should also be aware of the fact that if we have no more printed catalogs or printed literature, it will be impossible for us to bring in new collectors into the market. So if it's not auction catalogs, it should be books on collections, things that all of us do already, so that we keep this hobby alive and we make it accessible to those people who are not necessarily going online to look for a new hobby.
Thank you. I have a question here. It's quite general. What are the tax implications of selling a large collection through auction compared with selling through any other means? Now, can I start with Charles on this occasion?
Well, if I understand it correctly, of course, most people, when I go visit consigners, they ask me what the tax implications are. I can only speak about the US.
Yeah.
I don't know what the people are required to do. We always tell people you should honor your tax obligations. However, we are not obligated as an auctioneer to report or send what we call a 1099 here in the US to the IRS that stamps were sold. That responsibility falls on the shoulders of the collector. We then recommend that they file with the tax authorities what was sold. The problem is that so many collectors over the years have bought and bought and bought, and they're not really good at spreadsheets or keeping up to date on what their cost is. Many collectors have truly no clue what their cost is, and that becomes complicated. We have done formal letters to the IRS telling them what we believe the cost basis is on the basis of the collector's purchasing history and so on, to try to help mitigate enormous tax bills. Also, the sale of stamps in the US comes under a different tax rate than normal income. It's a collectibles tax rate. It used to be a capital gains rate, which was much lower. Now it's collectibles tax rate, which is still less than what the normal income tax rate is. Moral of the story is, don't have the tax man chasing you. It's better to work together with the auctioneer to try to be fair and honest and mitigate any tax implications.
Thank you. Could I go to Olivier in London?
Yeah, I think as Charles said, it's every jurisdiction, usually it's the tax of a country of residence of a seller which applies. So it's different all over the world, but In the UK, for example, I would say my comment, because the question was, does it make a difference if you sell to an auction? In most countries, to my knowledge, it makes no difference if you sell, to a dealer for $2 million or to an auction house for $2 million. It makes no difference in most countries. And in the UK, the situation is a bit specific because there is this rule of chattel, which is, every item below £6,000 and change, you don't need to report. And then only the item above £6,000 will go into your capital gain tax, which has several rates and it's not very, very expensive. So sometimes it's interesting, if you have a collection where nothing is worth more than £6,000, you might pay zero tax. So sometimes going to auction and breaking down or selling to a dealer in individual transaction might be more beneficial. But to be honest, in most countries, the tax consideration for the seller is not too much of an issue because it's relatively light in terms of tax. It's usually 5, 10, 15%. So it's not a huge amount. And if it can be spread between big items and small items, it's even easier.
If you are selling into the US from London, what tax do you have to add on in addition to the hammer price and the supplement Auctioneers edition? In other words, do you have to add on VAT or customs as well if you're selling into the US, or do you send the invoice just on the basis of hammer price plus 20%?
So that's a question for Charles or for me?
No, for you, because it's a question about the people in America have asked me specifically, if a London auction house sells into the US,
yes,
what are the additional tax charges?
So there will be the import. If there is an import, it's exactly like the EU I described earlier on. So there will be, compared to before, there will be no VAT on the buyer's premium if the stamps are exported, and then any tax at the entry of collectibles in the US would apply. I don't know what's the current rate, Charles, but that's how it would play.
Okay. I'm going to change the subject again. And I have an interesting question from a member of the expert committee at the Royal. This is from Paul Leonard. And he says, I've helped the expert committee at the Royal since 2010, utilizing my experience as a scientist to undertake forensic analysis of philatelic material. My question to the panel is to seek their views on what forensic methods and reference material they use and what aspects of forensic philately could be improved with further research. Dieter, could I come to you first on that one?
That's a good one. In general, I think that expertization nowadays plays a much bigger role than it did 20 years ago. Even when Volker Paten sold the John Boker collection of the German states, I think he had something like about 10% of the certificates made that we are making today. I think it's super important for collectors to have a sort of a security when they buy items from a neutral person. Nowadays, in Germany, many experts use the VSC machines, the VSC 8000 from Foster and Freeman. And we have one in-house. We use it constantly. And it does help us detecting many things. So I think this should be a standard. This will be a standard for expertization in future. Of course, it means that the people using the machine will really have to know what they're doing and have to have a lot of experience in what they're doing. But on the other hand, I think consumers then will have to pay for this knowledge, for this time that people are spending with their items. I think that experts are desperately underpaid these days. So it's rather difficult to find new people doing expertizations. But highest level possible, I think, should be demanded.
Thank you. Charles?
Well, we, of course, we want all collectors to feel a level of confidence in buying things that are genuine, not repaired, if that's how we describe them, and so on. And probably, I'd have this just a guess, maybe 60% of our lots already have certificates from recognized authorities. But even when stamps have certificates, we do carefully examine them, use the VSC 6000 as needed. And then if we get what we call a raw consignment, a collection that's old time without certificates, many items are sent in for certification before the sale. A lot, of course, US stamps almost all go to the Philatelic Foundation, which they do a tremendous amount of forensic examination. I happen to sit on the board of that, and we make sure of that. Which, by the way, the Philatelic Foundation, I'm sure this might be the same as the Royal, this past year during COVID, it had their best year in 20 years of submissions, fortunately. But there's nothing like having a great staff of experts that really know stamps. There are some stamps, I'll put a living, live person's expertise on a stamp versus a machine. They've handled stamps, they know what they should look like, and so on. Forensic philately has a place, but it doesn't replace a human being that has expert knowledge.
Sébastien, does this impact on your business?
Yes, a bit. The marketplace business is a bit different because we have different regulations. For instance, on marketplaces, we never check the items that are put on sale, just because it's not possible. On Delcampe, there are today more than 100 million items, and every day we have between 200 and 400,000 new items every day. So that's impossible to check. And at the opposite of the auction houses, we don't touch the stamps, so it's not possible to say if they are genuine or not. What we do is that we secure the community of collectors. So we rely on the collectors. We have many great philatelists using our website. Many RPSL members are members on Delcampe. And when the community see items that are not genuine or there is a problem with the sale, they can report the item to us. And at Delcampe, we have 3 people working full-time, 3 philatelists. They are not experts, but they are philatelists, and they receive the report from the community, and reportings come with an explanation on why there is a problem with an item. And these people, we have 1 person in Belgium, 1 in Germany, and 1 in Italy. They do that and they check. And when we see that there is a problem with an item, we close the sale. And if it happens several times and we begin having doubts about the seller's honesty, then, okay, we close the account of the seller. Simply, we say him that, okay, maybe he will be happier selling his stuff away on other marketplaces, but not on Delcampe. That's what we do. We are quite selective with our community. And what I can say as well is that if a buyer, despite what we do to secure transactions on Delcampe, if a buyer is disappointed, at least the European law, UK law as well, gives him the possibility to return back the item. So, okay, he can always do that. And what I can tell is that on Delcampe, when a transaction is over, buyer and seller can give a feedback to each other. That way we can say if a buyer or a seller have had a good track record, previous track record, and we can say that at present we have a rate of more than 99.8% of people satisfied. So it looks to be quite okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Olivier, I imagine you've got pretty strong on forensics.
Yeah, not much to add compared, to what was said previously, but Charles and Dieter, I think it's the same in all the major auction houses. I think what I wanted to add is certificates are very, very important, obviously, and more important, together with a provenance. because I think that gives a comfort to collectors. And also, we also advise people whenever possible to do the certificates before the auction. So basically the bidding from everybody is totally unleashed. There is not this lingering doubt that, I'm not sure that that piece is too good to be true. So it's better to do the cert before, so everybody bids and nobody is inhibited. It's not always possible due to timing, but when you can, it's very important. But the market is really moving provenance, certificates, no doubt, and quality. I think there is a premium in expanding every day for these attributes.
Thank you. One other question before we wrap up initially. I have a question here about how strong are your customer bases within Africa and South America, and how do these compare with China? I know that I can go straight back to you, Olivier, on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've done, we've purchased many years ago in Vela for their base in South America. Basically, Africa, we have a bit, but not much. It's a few hundred people. Same thing for South America, but the numbers are huge in China. So China is totally dwarfing Africa and South America combined. The market in China is incredibly vibrant. It's thousands and tens of thousands of people buying and selling stamps. It's the most dynamic stamp market. It's behaving almost like a stock market. So if you take each series from the large dragons to the small dragons to the PRC stamps, they will all follow different trends. And then within a day, everything is marked up 10%. So it's really very, very dynamic. And it's the most dynamic, the most vibrant market of all. And the numbers are just staggering. It's like in every industry, the Chinese collector, the Chinese buyer is going to change our game. And, they are coming to our little playground. They start buying GB stamps, they start buying, things, and that's going to totally change our world as we know it in all categories of collectible, but including stamps. When the Chinese will start to play, and they might start with the US and GB, it's going to change our market forever. And the prices will also change dramatically, because at the same level of rarity, a GB stamp is extremely cheap compared to a Chinese stamp at the same rarity level.
Charles.
Well, we'll start with what Olivier was saying about China. I agree with him that the Chinese market is totally unique. It's dynamic. It's remarkably vibrant. They haven't strayed out to buy things that are not their own, other than Chinese material very much yet, but they will. I'm a little less optimistic, and I don't want to make this political, but you can tell there is a reticence amongst wealthy Chinese to spend money in a way that attracts attention. And so there is some reluctance amongst the really high-end Chinese buyers. Come to us and told us that just currently with political conditions, they're a little less reticent to, or more reticent to be spending enormous sums of money. That will probably change. The market in Africa is all centered around the Union of South Africa, and the rest of the continent, there are virtually no buyers, except in Egypt. We like the emerging markets in Latin and America, Central and South America, and certain countries. The Brazilian market's very vibrant, Chile, but even in some of the smaller markets like Paraguay and Uruguay, we're starting to see people spending more sums of money than what they used to. So I like the international market overall, and it is what I said at the beginning, is what's driving prices, along with, we have a pretty large market here in the US.
Dieter?
Well, you know that we are a group of companies. We call ourselves the Global Philatelic Network, and we have an office in Hong Kong directly. So I can confirm what Olivier is saying. On the other hand, I can also confirm what Charles is saying, that still the Chinese market is very much oriented to the stamps of their own country. It's simply the way it is, and that's their culture. For the rest of the Asian markets, it's rather difficult for me to have an opinion because every country is different. Every country is individual. Same as we have the situation in Europe. We have so many different collectible habits and collectible areas that people collect. But I do think that China has a long way to come still for growth, and especially those people who are interested in some intellectual properties are very much inclined to invest in historical documents, like, for instance, the postal history. And there I would go with Charles, saying that the new rich are not so much into that. They prefer to buy wine or probably golden coins and that kind of things. But philately is not that much on their agenda yet. For South America, we are very strong, of course, with Corin Fila, who's had a long history in those countries. Again, every country is completely different. You cannot compare Brazil to Argentina or to Uruguay or to Chile or Bolivia. But in every country, there are a few collectors who are very, very active, and there is a middle class growing slowly, but it's growing. And I mean, okay, in Europe, yeah, that's where we are. You asked about South America and Asia. For other Asian countries than China, there's not much I can say, except for Taiwan, that's rather strong. Hong Kong is rather strong on the agenda, but other ones difficult. I suppose India is very, very active. We've had, in our last say, we had some activity from Indian states collectors. We made our experiences, and very, very active, sometimes difficult to handle because it's a completely different culture, but very interesting. And yeah, it's really opening new horizons.
Thank you. Have you anything to add, Sébastien?
Not really, I can only agree.
Okay, well, a friend of mine has put a question on internally to you, and he said, will you ask Sébastien how much is the Mona Lisa behind you?
Priceless, it's mine. I don't sell it.
Well, on that note, because I think we've been going for 55 minutes, and I'm very conscious that there are an enormous number of questions which haven't been, well, I haven't had a chance to ask them. I have tried to balance the different topics across the board. So we've had we've covered, I think, hopefully about 5 or 6 major topics, and I've done my best to balance the questions up. So I don't think in that sense there's any need to go back to you, Mark, to ask any more questions unless you want me to. So I would like to hand over to Peter Coburn, please, for a summary and vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mike, very much indeed. This afternoon has been a really excellent international conversation, and that is something which I applaud everybody in being involved. It's been very interesting. I've enjoyed watching you all, and I've certainly enjoyed the time and effort that our guests, Sébastien, Olivier, Charles, and Dieter, have given their time and their knowledge to us today. It seems to me that the next headline ought to be "Pandemic was great for the philatelic auctioneers." And I'm sure that would sell a few newspapers. Anything but the news that we're getting at the moment, certainly in Great Britain and quite a lot of other places around the world, with horrors starting up in the Eastern Europe. So it's great to be able to spend an afternoon talking about the things we love, about the businesses that you love, and the efforts that you put into making money for yourselves. Yes, absolutely, but also supplying the market, the collectors, the people that you deal with, all of us members of the Royal and other organizations who simply cannot do without you. I was very interested that a number of the auction houses that we've been speaking to have some very expensive equipment for their own use to study the stamps that they sell. I found that quite impressive because it shows a level of constancy, really, to see that what they sell is right. And I thought that was most interesting. The Delcampe, I think, is an organization which clearly is going places. It's been going for quite a number of years now. I know, Sébastien. It's not a place that I do a lot of work with. I do have a nickname, which I'll tell my friends sometime. But the major, well, one of your major competitors surely is eBay. And one of the things that eBay has upset me a great deal with at the moment is their new postal system, whereby they like to charge not just the postal system, but they like to charge a customs duty, even though there is no customs duty. Of recent date, I bought a small item from America, and the charges were nearly 3 times the value of the item. So keep an eye on that, Sébastien, and I'm sure you'll do better than they will.
I can tell you that at Delcampe, the buyer choose whether or not he wants us to collect. So up to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was interested also in the Chinese market. But today, as you know, is the Konghi Fatoi, the first day of the Year of the Tiger. So tiger stamps will be doing really well, I'm sure. And of course, those are close to my heart because the Federated Malay States had tiger stamps many years ago, started in 1906. So that's an interesting item too. I suspect, as all markets do tend to mature over the years, that the Chinese interested in their own material, once they get bored with that, they will be looking out for other countries. India is a major source, I think, of interest these days. There's a lot of Indian stamps constantly increasing in price. And as usual, these things will spread. Philatelic life in the Far East started in Singapore, then it went to Hong Kong, then it went to Malaysia, and then it went to China, and now it's coming all the way back again. And I'm sure that if you want to start a really good collection, try Vietnam or Laos, and you'll probably make a fortune. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'm here to say thank you to all of you dealers, auctioneers, and I truly believe that you've cracked something new. This was Mike Roberts' idea, and it's a very good one. It's the first time I think the Royals ever tried to have a symposium of this type, online, worldwide, and I think it's been a huge success. So Sébastien, Olivier, Charles, Dieter, thank you very much indeed. Thank you from me personally, thank you from everybody who's watching, and thank you from the Royal Philatelic Society London. We're looking forward to seeing you all in London. Yeah. I sincerely hope towards the end of this month, and I sincerely hope that you will all spread the word that England is now a great place to come to. The bugs are going downhill. The stamp market is getting better and better. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
now
much.
It's a duty to award you all with something to stick on the wall, or even put close to that wonderful portrait you have there, the unsmiling lady behind you. So Mark, I think you've got some certificates that I can give away.
Indeed, Peter, yes, I'll just put them up on the screen.
Oh, here we are, Sébastien Delcampe. Thank you very much indeed. This
Thank you
is
so
your
much.
certificate of appreciation, and it will be mailed to you in due course.
Thank you.
And Dietrich Michelson, thank you for your time and for
Thank
the
you.
obvious effort you put into your answers.
Great pleasure.
Here's
Thank you.
your certificate, and thank you very much. It will be mailed to you soon.
Thank you.
And here's Charles. Charles, I haven't seen you for ages, but
I know.
again, I hope we'll see you in London very soon, and it'll be a great pleasure to shake your hand again. And
Thank you.
here's your certificate, and we'll hand it over or send it to you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, Olivier, thank you so much. I don't know where you are at the moment, whether you're in London or somewhere else, but this is your certificate, and thank you so much for your participation. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, as far as I'm aware, that concludes the formal proceedings, Mark. If you want to change our configuration and perhaps stop recording.